And we've got a great partnership happening with Plunkett. And I popped into the workshop just briefly today and also yesterday, and we've managed to attract the same number of parents with their babies participating in the process, and they've got all sorts of ideas, and we've really noticed a huge increase in the confidence of the parents participating in this process, and we really look forward to Plunkett changing the way that they deliver their services in South Auckland. They're going through a whole redesign process, not just in South Auckland but nationally, and they're using this design thinking method, so there's some real synergy between what they're doing and what we're doing, and we expect to be able to report some great change happen out of that. And then finally, we've been also experimenting with some small innovations at a local community level and to engage young people. On the left-hand side are some pop-up events that have happened in town centres across South Auckland called Makerhood. That's something that we've been doing with community leaders like the Roots Collective. It's pop-up events focused on encouraging people to fix and repair, so it reduces organic waste to landfill, but also we've had 3D printers and computers for kids to play on, bike fix and repair pods, and ways to encourage the maker culture in South Auckland. And the reason for that is that we think that new technology could be a real enabler of social and economic change in South Auckland. Jobs are going to be very different in 10 years' time. Technology is really focused on the maker revolution now, and this is the beginning of it. We think if we can encourage young people to tinker and get involved in hands-on learning by doing, they'll be really up for what new technology offers. On the right-hand side are a couple of examples of creativity from young people in South Auckland. We've experimented with using an online platform to crowdsource creative content from community members. It's been really popular with young Maori and Pacific South Aucklanders, and those two pieces of artwork were part of a creative call that we collaborated with Panuku on. Panuku wanted to engage young people and transform Manukau, so they put out a call and got about 300 uploads of this kind of creativity, and we created a pop-up exhibition in the Manukau civic area, the square, the plaza, with I think it was about 7 or 10 examples of some of this artwork. And the interesting thing to note that I think that pop-up exhibition's been out in the plaza for about 2 weeks now, and there hasn't been a single tagging or vandalism. So I think that shows when people know that this is from the community, belongs to the people who live there, and they relate to it, vandalism and tagging doesn't happen. So from here, we think we've created a really good base for community and social innovation, and we've focused a lot on understanding the lived experience of South Aucklanders and gaining lots of insight. Also doing a lot of things to learn and have some practical action happening on the ground. This next year, we want to accelerate and amplify that to really step up the impact. But we will remain focused on those areas of employment and skills, enterprise entrepreneurship and early years and whānau wellbeing. But we'll continue to be entrepreneurial, making sure that we maximise existing resources, we challenge our community partners to do the same, and that we continue to work with central government in a way that maximises their investment in the projects like Healthy Families, Healthy Homes and the Early Years Challenge, which has been funded by MSD, and also the Māori and Pacific Trades Training.
Questions?
No, so not questions. Just to acknowledge the work that the TSI have done in Gao to you, Tane, and the rest of the team. As the chair of the steering group, I know that we asked Gail to end up sending a newsletter through to our councillors and members on this particular committee, so I'm just hoping you're receiving these instead of an update once every year. So that's one issue that we wanted to address early on in the piece, is that you end up getting a newsletter around the work that's being done. So again, we just look forward to really getting the newsletters and the updates. Gail. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Halls.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is fantastic. You know, I think there was a lot of kind of hand-wringing about where Southern Initiative was going to go, and it's just, you know, it's exactly what we've asked for. I think it's brilliant. So now, here's my ask. Next term, if I'm here, I'm going to be asking for a Western Initiative, and I think Councillor Cooper will be backing me on that. So we don't need another whole big Southern Initiative, you know, let's start from scratch, whatever. But as the Southern Initiative is kind of coming out of the ground and happening, what old Waitakere held together out west is kind of draining away, because the local boards, bless their hearts, are kind of well-intentioned, but you need the big arms around it to hold it together. So I'm really hoping that in the next council we can look at this, because I think people can now see 6 years on, a lot of cynicism, but this is exactly what we need to do, and our local boards are simply not tooled up to deliver it in the kind of disparate way in which they work. So I guess, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move this, speak with huge enthusiasm for the work done, but signalling that we need to anchor south and west, we need to be doing this out west as well.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper. And then
I'm just going to back up our Deputy Mayor's comments, because we go to the our local board meetings and we have communities coming to us with these kind of initiatives they want to do, but there's just not enough funding.
There's no money.
And they've got the will there, and so do the local boards, but they don't have that. So I think it's about identified need. You know, some local boards aren't going to need money for this stuff, but others are, and I think it's part of the empowering communities response. It just can't be all channelled into one place. And there's definitely need in South, but there is in West, and West is not far behind in some of our families. And when you walk the streets door knocking and putting flyers on, you see some of these homes and some of the people in them, and you know, they really need some support to be doing for themselves. And so I think if we could not call it the Southern Initiative, but something else, it's just broadening that scope of, especially with the employment stuff and the kinds of initiatives that engage people. We've got murals coming out of our ears in West Auckland, but I'll tell you what, they're fabulous and good, but local boards struggle like hell to try and get funding for them, and they could do so much more. So I'd just like to see a bit of sharing the love around. Thank you.
I've got a question in relation to early childhood education. That was, I mean, the figures were fairly daunting as far as southern areas of Auckland in the Royal Commission report. So have you got any figures on where that, or information as to where that is now?
Participation rates have really improved in South Auckland, but what we're hearing is that there's a big need for families to have activities that they can do if they're raising their children themselves, or for the 20 hours that perhaps are not sending their children to early childhood services. We're also hearing from some early childhood services that the children are having a great time. They're in a good quality early childhood centre, but they're really concerned about the mothers who are really isolated. They drop their kids off, go home, and all sorts of problems with depression and not connected to education or training or employment. So there's a big need for families. It's not just provision of early childhood education, and that's what we're exploring through this early years challenge.
You're right to Massey to look at the Pacific
And also
Island.
in relation to libraries, I mean, we've been on visits down there and we've seen the real demand for computers and computer use, and I think some of them, there's a line-up of people waiting. Is that something which you've had a look at? And
Yeah, we've got a great collaboration happening with libraries, and libraries are really reinventing themselves. There are 10 fabulous libraries across South Auckland, and they're really up for innovating and changing and responding to what the residents are looking for. We've had library staff involved in our early years challenge workshops, and they've been up for change and responding to the ideas that are being generated.
I go home from here, Mr. Chair.
Ask a question. Oh, just had a question.
Councillor,
I go home from here with the
Mr.
question.
Wilcox, you got a question?
Yes. Oh, this is great stuff. I just wanted to understand, because I don't see it in here, how you're working with the marae of South Auckland, like Iowa and Matukutira.
Yeah. We're working with a number of marae, Papakura marae, who've hosted some of our early years workshops, and some of the team are really closely connected to Tony Kaki and his team. Manarewa marae, we've got some really exciting opportunities happening there with youth-led social enterprise. Tanya was recently at Tapuia marae as part of a deconstruction project where some of the... Do you want to talk
with
about
our
that?
waste colleagues who are doing some really fantastic work around deconstruction and making sure that those materials are distributed back out into fantastic community causes instead of landfill. So we did a bit of filming of that so that we can promote more of that type of thing.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Cooper, you got a question?
I just had a question. In Waitakere, we had children's librarians, and they got culled on the amalgamation. And it sounds like kind of that's what someone's trying to do again. So have we got some sort of plan to make children's librarians across the board? Because it actually does make a difference. I mean, that's a lot of the clientele. They were great programs. Of course, they can be modified, but they actually made a huge difference. But they also engaged the mothers. You know, story times, all sorts of stuff like that. So, you know, if you're going to... We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We could probably just bring back some stuff that actually worked and got discarded. Because I see that's another way of bringing mothers in, and often there's mothers that don't have great literacy levels,
Yep.
but that can actually help them if it's story reading from other people. It's a quiet way of not exposing that you can't read, but it's a helpful way of learning and helping learning reading along with children. So is there anything going in that area, or...?
I'm not sure specifically, but it's definitely something we can talk to our libraries colleagues about.
Kind of makes sense, doesn't
And
it?
I agree. Their good ideas aren't necessarily new ideas. Sometimes they're revived and adapted ideas.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, you got a,
Just a small comment in regards to the assistance with Maori. The steering group, and I just wanted to acknowledge the councillors that attend our steering group meetings, but the steering group have all our mana whenua, and we're in the process now of getting Mata Waka involved. We've got all our advisory councillors for at least the Southern Initiative area. You know, there's just quite a few on our steering group, which is so important. And anybody on our steering group can actually get involved with any of our of the goals that we've set. And so in regards to that, and I know Matua, you've been to one of the steering group or some of the steering group meetings. They have an opportunity to get involved in everything that's basically been highlighted there.
Okay.
Like I said, I just want to acknowledge the work that Arthur Anai has done, especially around the driver's licensing. It's been an issue that he's put up not only at this table but also at the steering group.
We just have worries about the chair, Mr.
thank you.
Yeah.
Right, well, thank you, Gail, for coming in. Much appreciated. And this is, I remember 3 years ago, they came in and gave a presentation, and there was a huge number of questions. And I think Councillor Philippina wondered where the Southern Initiative was going. So you've certainly changed it, and it's good to see you really at the grassroots. So I will now thank you, and I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against, declare that carried. Thank you. Now we've got a few
Have you moved item 16, Mr Chair?
16 is moved by councillor Penrose. I'll second that.
Yep.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. 17 information items. I'll move that.
You have to second it.
Seconded by councillor Penrose. Put that. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declare that carried. Have we still got a quorum?
Yes.
As long as